talked about the vessel speed reduction program. This is a nice graphic that I like to use. It shows the overwater boundary of our 20 and 40 nautical mile boundaries. Here is the 20 and 40, and then this is the overwater boundary that the South Coast Air Quality Management District uses to they collect any emissions over that boundary. So our emissions inventories also, we track emissions for any vessels that come into that boundary as well. So over on the right-hand side is Long Beach's overwater boundary as well. No, it's the same. Oh, corny joke. We mentioned the CARB zone, and this is the 24 nautical mile CARB boundary. So this is kind of a nice all-encompassing graphic. So that is one incentive program that we have. It's been around since 2001, and both ports have high participation in these programs. The next one is the Environmental Ship Index program. It's been around since 2011. It's an international clean shipping index program developed under the auspices of IAPH WPCI. It's the International Association of Ports and Harbors World Ports Climate Initiative. The Port of Los Angeles adopted the program in July of 2012. The idea is ESI is a formula-based calculation using IMO regulations as baselines for the formula, and as vessels score better than, or they are in advance, the vessels are in advance of IMO regulations, they accrue points, and it's based on NOx, SOx, and CO2. To date, there's 23 incentive providers that include 3 in North America, 1 in Asia, 2 in the Middle East, 15 in Europe, and then there's 2 classification groups, Green Award and RightShip. And there's over 2,500 vessels enrolled in ESI. The Port of Los Angeles program, what happens is each incentive provider develops their own program. So we develop our program is vessels receive more money commensurate on vessel scores. So as you can see on the top here, we start incentivizing vessels that have 30 or more points per ship. And then we've also aligned with Long Beach in incentivizing Tier 2 vessels with Tier 2 and Tier 3 engines below in this OGV 5 category. And then OGV 6 is, we're also giving additional incentives if a ship is doing a NOx or DPM control technology demonstration on their main engine, they'll get additional monies per call. These incentives are paid quarterly. The vessel speed reduction is paid annually. So those are our 2 main incentive programs, and then with our technology advancement program, we partnered with shipping lines and other entities to demonstrate different programs. So this one is the Crystalline scrubber. It's a scrubber installed on the APL England, and it's designed to scrub emissions from up to 3 auxiliary engines. And the scrubber is right here. So it's up on the bridge, and just direct connects right into the auxiliary exhaust. This is the main exhaust, but the smaller exhaust pipes kind of go right into that system. So, and you can also see the emission reductions from that demonstration project. This project was to demonstrate the use of incorporating water emulsified in fuel to reduce NOx emissions. There were some varied results. This is a multi-agency program, so the ports of LA, Long Beach, and other air districts up and down the coast participated in this project. Another interesting thing is they also installed slide valves to see if that would further reduce NOx. And the report was kind of inconclusive if slide valves would actually reduce NOx. So what that did is it kind of precipitated into this next demonstration. B&W Engine Manufacturing Company, they said that slide valves do decrease NOx from engines, and they do up in the range of engine loads that the vessels normally run at, so 85% engine load. you see a NOx reduction. But as vessels slow down, the NOx benefit also decreases. So the ports wanted to vet this to see if there is NOx reductions. And the reason why is because of our vessel speed reduction program, where we incentivize vessels to go to 12 knots. These ships are often running in engine loads less than 25%. So we sent a group over to the test bed over here in Japan and looked at we compared these different slide valves at different engine loads. So the standard that all engines are tested at is the IMO E3 cycle, where you test emissions at 25, 50, 75, and 100% load. So vessels coming into San Pedro go less than 25%. We wanted to see what those emission reductions were, if any, at those lower loads. And so from the slide valves, we did not see a NOx reduction, but we did see a high CO and PM benefit. The other driver for this demonstration is because some of the environmental documents that we've been writing, we were saying that vessels, as a mitigation requirement, had to put slide valves on their engines. So these next two technologies I'll talk about real briefly are at-berth emission control systems. This is kind of generation one of the Amex system, designed to treat emissions at berth. This is an alternative to AM. The second program is the Clean Air Emissions System, which is Port of Los Angeles is putting in money through a grant through TradePac in the TradePac EIR. It's essentially the same idea, both systems barge-based, collect emissions at berth. The top graphic is kind of the prototype, and then the bottom graphic is actually the commercial version of the emission treatment system. And then this is another project. It's to be determined if the ports are going to contribute. It's a LNG Repower. This is a picture of the Horizon Spirit. It's a steamship. It's a Jones Act protected U.S. flag ship. These vessels have an exemption from EPA until 2020 to use bunker fuel in the low sulfur fuel areas. So steamships are highly inefficient and the price of fuel is also skyrocketed, so they're looking to different solutions. So they're planning to put two dual fuel engines, LNG diesel engines in these vessels. So they're planning on having two done by 2016 and then retrofit their additional fleet up through 2020. So that's kind of an overview of the OGV technologies. Next, I'll just real briefly go into the federal kind of the regulatory landscape. As mentioned, the federal EPA defines what clean air is. The state of California is in severe non-attainment, so we're moving forward to reduce air emissions. I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, let me back up. What the EPA did is they applied to IMO for an ECA, and this is a graphic of the ECA. It's a 200 nautical mile zone. It set sulfur standards and NOx standards. The sulfur requirement is 1% sulfur right now. Within 2015, all vessels will be required to use 0.1% sulfur. So in 2015, the CARB fuel regulation and ECA will harmonize. NOx standards, this requires all new builds starting in 2015 to require Tier 3 engines. And so this is really where the rubber meets the roads on technology advancement. The Tier 3 NOx standard is 3.4 grams of NOx per kilowatt hour. So that's about an 80% reduction over a vessel with a Tier 1 engine. So it's a really, the regulators always thought that the Tier 3 would be technology driving. And the other key date for technology is 2020. That is the date when the high seas fuel standard will be is proposed to be 0.5% sulfur fuel. So that's really going to drive technology. California, as I mentioned, we're in severe non-attainment for PM and ozone. So the Fed say states clean up your emissions, And if you're not taking the necessary steps, it will take your transportation funding away from you. So that's the real carrot there for these emission reduction regulations. Anyway, so what started out in the cap with shore power is now a California requirement for all cruise, container, and reefer vessels. Port of Los Angeles has invested over $180 million to install 25 amp berths. They've also required low sulfur fuel to be used within 24 nautical miles. And then they're also looking, they've been looking from time to time at vessel speed reduction. It's very successful here in this geographic region because we've essentially taken an open ocean and converted it into like a river port, if you will, because river ports, inland ports have speed reductions requirements, so we've kind of created that situation here. One kind of interesting fact is when the fuel regulation was enacted, ships were leaving and then they're going outside the boundary and then straight up the coast. So what CARB did is they included the islands off the state as part of the baseline of California coast. So that's why it kind of looks like marshmallows out there. At the local level, with the ports, we're supporting the SIP, and we're taking care of our fair share contribution to air quality. So we do emissions inventory every year compared back to the 2000 baseline, as Rick mentioned. So we are tracking our programs through our annual emissions inventories, and they're all on the website for review. Port LA, Port of Long Beach were the first to do an air quality program, and there's been other ports to follow suit, such as Port of New York, New Jersey, Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, and Port of Houston. We've also set in the 2010 CAP update long-range emission reduction goals. That's not going away, but anyway, there's 2014 and 2023 DPM and NOx emission reduction goals, and then there's a 2020 health risk standard. So, if you look at our graphs and on our websites, we're there. We're pretty close to meeting our we met our 2014 goals. We're very close to meeting our 2023 goals. The trick is when cargo volume comes back, we start to more ships call it. How can we keep those emission reductions low and still grow? So that's what we are looking to these alternative to AMP technologies to capture non-regulated fleets. We're also looking to zero emissions as well. So thank you very much.